What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Take Time Out with Tre Mosley. I am your host, Tre Mosley, and my guest, well, what can you say uh, about a man who has been doing this way longer than I have, and that's a good thing. Um, Bob Bergen has been, uh, at least for me, a voice of my childhood, and probably many of you out there, as Porky Pig. But and we'll get into Porky, of course, but what I would like to do, um, if it's okay with you, sir, on my podcast, I like to, of course, talk about the here and now, which I call the after. But for many, especially for my striving or aspiring voice actors, I like for them to talk to you, or I like for them to hear us dialogue more about the before.
Okay.
Most of my guests were in theater or in radio, and then they transitioned into VO. I think what a lot of people may not know about you, you've always wanted to do this, and your story of how you got into it, and working with another talent who has since passed on, I think is a very cool story. So if we can just jump right into it and tell the folks how you got into the business.
Well, and first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I didn't know what this was. I just knew I wanted to do voices for cartoons. I was just the typical kid, like everybody else, who would wake up early on Saturday morning when the parents were upstairs asleep, and I'd have a bowl of cereal, and I would watch the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show, and I would watch Scooby Doo, and I would watch reruns of the Flintstones. And my mom tells a story where she'd come downstairs and she'd hear a line on the TV, and then she'd hear the line again, and then she'd hear another line, and she'd hear the line again, and she thought that's strange, like a record skipping. And then she stood behind me and she saw me mimicking the cartoons,
Mm.
back to the cartoons. So I just had a knack for doing voices for cartoons. And in particular, I wanted to be the voice of Porky Pig. I didn't want to just be in this business. I wanted to be one character. But again, I'm a kid growing up in the Midwest. I don't know what the business even means. I didn't know there was a business.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a business when we moved to LA. And I had no choice in moving to LA. My dad took a job here when I was 14. So, but that was great because I just thought, well, this is where cartoons are done, and this is where I want to be. Thank you, Dad. My dad commuted. At that time, we were living in Cincinnati, and my dad commuted for about 6 months before the family actually moved here.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, go to a phone booth. And for kids who don't know what that is, look up Google phone booth. They were boxes where you made a phone call before your phone was in your pocket. And I said, go to the Yellow Pages, which is a business resource book for people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and until the internet. And I said, rip out anything A animation, C cartoon. And he would come home with all these. By the way, I think that's vandalism, but it's okay.
Well, we won't tell.
Yeah. But if anybody was anywhere in Southern California at that time looking at something under A where animation was, the page is missing. Sorry, it was my dad. And I just had these pages with me. That when we moved to LA, I was like, well, I'm going to call Walt Disney Studios. I'm going to call Filmation. I'm going to call all these animation studios and say, what do I do? How do I do it? And I've told the story a million times. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I called Mel Blanc, found his number in the phone book, crashed a recording session, realized he's still doing it. He's still doing Porky Pig, which is what I really wanted to be.
Mhm.
And came home from crashing a recording session, called Hanna-Barbera, which I had in my little sheets of yellow page. And they referred me to a guy named Dawes Butler. And Dawes Butler was all the voices Mel Blanc wasn't. And Dawes was one of dozens of people that I studied with from starting at the age of 14. My parents had a rule. I had to keep a C average. And they would pay for my voiceover classes
Nice.
as long as I kept a C average, and because I was a lousy student. Because Porky Pig did not need to know geometry.
Right.
And I got my first side job scooping ice cream at 14 and a half because you could get a work permit at 14 and a half. From that point forward, I paid for my classes. because I
Nice.
wanted to show my parents I'm serious about this. I mean, this is what I want to do. And 4 years into studying voiceover, and I got my first agent. I was introduced to my first agent through Casey Kasem,
Wow.
and I didn't know I'd hit the CAA of voiceover agents. He represented Mel Blanc and June Foray and Casey Kasem and Orson Welles and just the top voiceover people in the industry. So that's kind of how I got into the business. But then I spent 5 years from my first from signing with my first agent and getting my first job. I spent 5 years in survival jobs until I was able to make a living at this. So long story short, from first day in a workshop to working actor was about 9 years.
Sounds about right. I got into the business around 2009, and I didn't see a change to where I could actually, you know, do this as a living till about maybe 2016.
Sure.
So it takes a minute. You will pay your dues. And just being in voiceover is on the job training every day. Be it coaching or the actual session itself, because you're gonna learn something, probably something about yourself you didn't know, from the previous session or the previous gig. We're always evolving, especially for you folks that do a lot of animation. You're a new character almost every day or every session, depending on the show or the what they're asking from you. Um, what would you say is the biggest difference in voiceover now that you see, maybe perhaps from that golden age, when you and Casey and the late June Foray and those folks were doing it at a high level versus now?
Well, there's good and bad change. I'll talk about the good first because I want to lead with positivity.
Sure.
Uh, the good when I got into this business, and I signed with my first agent in 1982. In 1982, um, there were only three networks, TV networks. They did Saturday morning cartoons. There were occasional syndicated cartoons. Disney might have released an animated feature every 5 to 7 years.
Hmm.
Today, we have 24/7 cartoon networks. Every major motion picture studio has a thriving animation department. We have games. We have primetime cartoons that are
Hmm.
successful. We have tons of syndicated cartoons. Never have there been more opportunities for those who do character voices than today. And animation is the only voiceover genre that has stayed well over 90% union. The
Hmm.
reason for that is because of celebrities.
Yeah.
Every TV show, every movie loves to have a name actor. And for TV, for all intents and purposes, animation is a scale industry. So if you can have a major celebrity in your booth doing an episode of your cartoon, that's exciting to a producer. That's exciting to a network. It's PR when they're
Yeah.
promoting the show. That's the plus. The downside is that when I got into the business, 95% of all voiceover was union, which meant that every job that you got paid into your pension and your health. What
Yes.
does that mean? Well, if you make benefits, if you earn enough to make health benefits for 10 years, you will be guaranteed a pension when you're 65.
Right.
Every job paid into that. I got my first job at 18. By the time I was 28, I was guaranteed a pension when I'm 65. That doesn't happen anymore because over 80% of voiceover today is non-union. Um, that is difficult for the union actor. That's difficult for the agents because it used to be you book one national commercial that runs 3 months and your family's got health benefits next year. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way anymore because most commercials are not union. Add AI to the equation, the non-union world is the Wild West. And let's face it, non-union actors, you do e-learning, you do audiobooks, you do narration, you do phone prompts. Your work is going to be impacted by AI in the same way that CGI impacted on camera makeup, hair, sets, costumes 30 years ago. There was a time where they couldn't do it without a hands-on prosthetic makeup artist. Today they can do it with a computer. So this is not new. This a tech disruption that really disrupts. This is just now. It's been going on forever. It's just that actors are louder about it. You never heard makeup artists complaining on social media, I'm not working because a good percentage of my work is done with a computer. But actors are more vocal. And this is a roundabout way of saying that, in my personal opinion, well, the world in voiceover went non-union because of the last major tech disruption, the internet. From 1933 and forward, 1933 is when SAG was founded. Every tech disruption, from silent movies to sound, from black and white to color, from film to TV, from network TV to cable, with every tech disruption, the work always still stayed union until the internet. And it was with the internet that the work went non-union. Because of AI, if people want to make a living in voiceover and not have their work stolen and used, because too many actors are going to do a job where there won't be AI protections just for the sake of doing a job, which is how the union voiceover industry eroded in the first place. I predict a lot of the work is going to come back to the union just so people can have a career in voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good and the bad.
Now, to touch on that, what can actors do? Or let's even go a step further, because in order for a non-union actor to get work, there has to be non-union houses that are producing things. Why do you feel that some of the production companies will not convert or even become a union house, so to speak?
They don't have to. There's too many people to say yes to an easier and cheaper and faster way of hiring voice talent. And that started 25 years ago with the advent of the internet. Before the internet, voiceover was isolated to LA, Chicago, New York. You wouldn't dream of doing anything non-union because you knew it damaged your fellow actors. You knew it damaged you because if enough people say, sure, I'll do it for non-union, they'll have enough actors to rely on. Good. And by the way, they weren't very good back then. 25 years ago, non-union actors, yeah. Today, you can't tell a non-union actor from a union actor. They're just good actors. After
Right.
25 years, they're terrific. So, and the union was arrogant because 25 years ago, when I warned them about this, they said, oh, McDonald's will never do a non-union commercial. They'll never do non-union promos. They'll never, arrogance. And by the way, not their fault either. Because again, there had never been a tech disruption that turned an industry from union to non-union. Nobody could predict the power and the outreach of the internet. They didn't know what it hadn't existed before.
Right.
So the same thing that happened with non-union is going to happen with AI. All you need is one person to say, I'll do it for that price. I'll do it without AI protections. I need a connection. I need a relationship. I need something for my demo. I want to hear myself come out of speakers. I want to hear myself come out of a commercial. And that has value to people. So the non-union world will have no guaranteed protections when it comes to AI, because there's going to be somebody who'll be willing to say, I will undercut. Happy to take it for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the TV theatrical SAG-AFTRA contract, the recent animation contract that I co-chaired, we are now not just demanding, but implementing AI protections and AI profit sharing. It's the new generation of residuals. If you want protection and profit sharing in your voiceover career, it's going to have to be union. Ironically, it was the non-union voiceover talent that took the industry away from us, and it's going to be the union industry that's going to bring it back. If actors still want to be able to make a living at this, and by the way, they don't have to. You're going to get people in who live in areas of the country who make minimum wage, who like They're paying me $250 to talk in my closet for 30 minutes. I just hit the lottery today. I don't care if there's AI protections. What they don't realize is, yeah, but that buyer now has your voice and can just use that through
Mhm.
AI to create, so, and they could sell it too. And the non-union industry 20, 25 years ago, by working on the pay-to-play companies, actually gave them permission to sell and train generative AI. So basically, they brought it on themselves. That is the truth. Sorry. Now, most of these platforms are now agreeing to not do that. Doesn't matter. The damage is done. They got 20 plus years of content. I still am. I'm on the AI task force. I have no idea if this is where you wanted to go, Trey, with this conversation,
No,
but
no,
I'm
no.
just
This,
going with
this
the
is
flow.
this is good. This is people need to know this.
I'm on the AI task force at the Television Academy. I was on their board for 10 years. And a year ago, we had a meeting with major AI tech companies. And by the way, for the people who say AI has no heart, AI has no soul, there's no human content, there's no human touch, have not seen the good stuff, or they've seen and didn't know it was generative AI. I'm watching some great stuff. I'm listening to some great stuff in this demonstration. And I raised my hand and I said, I'm a voice actor. Where did you get the core material to do this?
Mm.
And they said, from you. I said, from me? What did you use from me? Well, don't you do voices.com, voice123, all the pay to play stuff, the fivers? No. Why? Oh, that's where we got it.
Wow.
Oh. And it said in the user agreement when actors signed up and paid for this that the companies had the right to use their work. And it didn't say for what, because for what didn't exist yet, but it didn't
Right.
matter. It didn't matter. So um, this is a problem. This is why we went on strike with the TV theatrical contract for months, because we knew if we're going to continue to have a chance to make a living in this business as professional actors, it's got to be union.
Talk to those and thank you for this insight because um for those folks who are watching this who are non-union actors, this is something that they may or may not have known. So now you're shedding light on something that gives them some insight and perhaps, furthering their career will give them something to think about and perhaps joining the union. Um, Talk about why you feel the union's hubris, I'll say, because if you have talent like yourself who've been in the union, 20 plus years, and you're telling them, hey, we can feel the tsunami coming, but they, ignored it. Why did it take them so long to finally go, oh, okay, you were right?
They haven't said that about the world of non union yet.
Ah,
I've talked about this publicly. I'll talk about it again. I have a proposal that has been in play for a dozen years at the union that I'm bringing back to the table again this year because I'm a glutton for punishment, Trey. Um, and I will tell you guys what that proposal is. Well, whether it will pass, I don't know. I was all for the merging of SAG and AFTRA because both unions claimed jurisdiction on all contracts because everything was, it used to be if it was on tape, it was AFTRA, if it was filmed, it was SAG. And then
mhm.
everything went digital. So they each claimed jurisdiction on the same types of shows. Because of that, our pension and health was divided into two unions
Oh,
and nobody was thriving. So we had to merge the unions because you couldn't even discuss merging pension and health unless the parent companies were merged first. That was a federal law. Okay,
mhm.
I was all for the merger of these two unions. I saw the writing on the wall when it came to our pension and health.
Yeah.
But what I warned the union about was um, the majority of the voiceover industry joined or became a union member by way of legacy AFTRA, which all that took was desire and a check.
Hmm.
If we merge and we adopt legacy SAG's qualifications, which means you have to have proven that you've worked to join, we're going to erode the voiceover industry even more. And the reason is because middle America, who have gained a voiceover career by way of the internet, who are making good money, Trey. I'm going to be
Mm.
really honest. The people that have really learned how to work the system, they're doing good. They don't have pension and health. They don't have residuals. They don't have anybody at the union to go after late fees. They don't
Mhm.
have a lot of the benefits that we got, but they don't relate to the benefits that we have. All they relate to is the fact that they're being paid and 5 and 6 figures to work, to do what they love. Okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if we take on legacy SAG's qualifications, we're going to erode the industry even more, to the point where we will see fewer union opportunities for everybody. What does that mean? It means that when we have 50% or more of the country that has right to work, when these actors have a thriving non-union uh, career, when they don't see enough union opportunities during the week to qualify to join the union, let
Mhm.
alone make a living at it, we need to find incentives. We need to adjust our business model. We need these actors back to the union. And the catalyst and the incentive, I think, to change the mind of the powers that be, that was not on my proposal before, that it is now, is AI. These actors now need us. They didn't need us before, but now they do. Here's my proposal. I'm gonna summarize it. Um, for 5 years, if you identify as a voiceover actor, and I use that in quotes because it's a word people like to use today for anything that they are. If
Yeah.
you identify as a voiceover actor, you may join SAG-AFTRA, a la Legacy AFTRA. All it takes is a desire and a paycheck. You may pay off the $3,000 initiation fee monthly for 5 years until it's paid off. During those 5 years, you may continue to do non union work while you
Mm.
pursue union work.
Union like that.
But
Okay.
during those 5 years, we ask that you alert our organizing department who your non union buyer is, so we can try to organize that work union. Oftentimes, it pays enough to cover union scale, pension, health, etc.
Yeah.
And the buyers don't know it. And the buyers don't want to deal with the bureaucracy and the red tape and all the BS that comes with trying to hire a SAG-AFTRA. During these 5 years, we need to find a way to hire union talent at the union that is as fast and as easy as it is to hire a non-union talent. And over time, as the synergy and the momentum and this well-oiled machine becomes 5 days a week, just a daily part of how the union is organized, the business model, over time, we will reclaim much of the voiceover industry. Um, it's 80% non-union right now. I think we're going to get 10% back or more. But I think I'm being conservative with that number. I think we're going to get 20 to 40% of it back, because I think actors are not going to want to give up their voiceover career because of AI. And if all of our contracts, we got TV theatrical, we got animation. Next comes net code. It's happening right now.
Mhm.
Next comes commercials. It's once all of our contracts, uh, and it's trickled down to AI protections and profit sharing to all of our contracts. Now we're in the game. So what this means to actors is they can join the union. They don't have to plunk down $3,000 up front. They can keep their non-union buyers for 5 years. After 5 years, let's see how it may have bombed. After 5 years, if you want to resign from the union, resign from the union. My gut tells me after 5 years and you go, oh my gosh, I'm 50% vested into for a pension when I'm 65. Oh my gosh, I had the slowest 2 months of my voiceover career, but I got monthly income because that stuff paid residuals. Oh my
Oh.
gosh, I've been waiting for checks of my non-union world for years, but I just contacted the claims department and they got me more money than I thought I was out. Yeah, I think people are going to then, they're not going to have a generation gap away from the union. They're going to be the generation of the union.
Yeah.
And this is a way to bring the work back, this is the way to bring more benefits to more voiceover actors, because more voiceover actors will be union actors. The way it was when I started in the industry. And for everybody watching this who say, well, it's really hard to work strictly union. It was harder back when I started. There was less work. We didn't have TNT. We didn't have Nickelodeon. We didn't have Netflix. We didn't have streaming. We didn't have video games. It's better today than it was back then, but we stuck to it because we didn't want to damage our possibilities of having a career that came with benefits and residuals.
I can I can bear witness to residuals. You know, I've been union now since 2017, and I booked my first union commercial in 2021. It's 2024 and it's still running. And and I was just looking at my P&H to check and see whether or not I qualified for this next plan coming up for health and insurance, because my wife is on it too. And they were like, yeah, you qualified like 6 months ago, because looking at the residuals, I'm like, oh, okay, I all right, I guess we're good for till 2025. So yeah, I am a proponent of union um benefits and what it can do, because it has certainly helped out my family, especially now because she stopped working to go to school full time. So I am the only one in the house that is keeping things afloat. So yeah,
Yep.
the union has been a benefit for me. Um, talk about how. So one of the things that I hear so often, and I wish um, productions would do more, um, ensemble recordings. Why do you? And I know we all have home studios now, and you can pretty much plug and play from anywhere. But talk to us about how it was being in an ensemble cast and being able to vibe and just feed off of each other, because I've only done it once and it was a great experience because you get to feel the energy versus kind of sitting here in a cell, so to speak, and recording. Talk about what it felt like being a part of ensemble cast.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards.
Sure.
People, uh, uh, people are using COVID as the excuse for no longer having ensemble recording. We weren't having ensemble recordings for 5+ years before COVID because people are busy. I was doing Looney Tunes cartoons, doing Porky Pig, and Bugs and Daffy were nowhere to be seen because they were busy on the other sessions. So I was in my booth by myself, or not my booth, I was at the studio by myself. Really, Daffy? You don't say. And maybe if for a quarter. And I'm like, that poor editor who has to put all this together and make
Yeah.
everybody sound. All right, then cut to, COVID. I never worked from home. I had a beautiful booth that I auditioned from home. I did radio imaging because all they wanted was an MP3.
Yeah.
But I never worked from home. So, $2,000 investment. I've got a broadcast quality studio. I never want to leave that booth again. I
Wow.
spent half my day in LA traffic. I'm able to do more auditions, more sessions, more everything because I can work from home. But how was it before?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to go backwards.
Okay.
So the way it was before is the way they do it for primetime animation, like The Simpsons and Bob's Burgers and Family Guy. You would get to your session, and the first thing you'd do is sit around a table and you would do a table read of the episode. All the actors there, everyone. You'd take a break, you'd pee, you get a cookie, you get some coffee, you come back, they set up the microphones, and you recorded. The reason why they did it ensemble is because when television animation became a big thing, which
Hmm.
is the late 60s, that was before the late 60s. Children's programming was reruns of Woody Woodpecker, Popeye, and Looney Tunes, and Cat and
Wow.
Kangaroo. It was Scooby Doo in 1969. There were some cartoons before that, but it was really Scooby Doo in 1969 that was the next generation of animation for kids. All these actors came from radio. All these actors were used to ensemble. By the way, they also dressed nice. I
Huh.
would see June Foray look like she was going out for the evening. Mel Blanc would wear a tie. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, today this is my voiceover outfit, because if I'm going to be in my box for 8 hours, I'm wearing something light.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have to do my hair. I can turn my cap around because I got hat head. So it was just it was different. You're right. I do think working off your fellow actors makes for a better ensemble performance, because acting is reacting.
Yes.
Every animated feature I've ever done in the last 20 something years, 30 years, I'm by myself. You're always by yourself when you do an animated feature. You know, if you ever see the DVD extras where you see the cast together recording, that was staged for the DVD.
Oh.
Oh yeah. When I did The Emperor's New Groove, where I played a
Mhm.
squirrel and Patrick Warburton played Kronk, and we've got
Mhm.
wonderful on-screen chemistry. I've never been in the studio with him.
Oh, wow.
For that movie, the straight-to-video sequel, and 3 years on the series, we've never worked together once. That's just the way it is. So, in a perfect world where it's just the perfect environment for the best possible acting and reacting, ensemble's great. The reality is, I love it. And listen, I just turned 60, so I'm old. I don't need to be on the freeway. I don't need to be sitting in my agent's lobby for 3 to 4 hours waiting to audition with everybody else, where half my day is just trying to get a job. I like the idea of waking up, pouring a cup of coffee, coming into my office, opening up Twist Away, pushing record, walking in that booth. Love it.
I got in too late. I missed all of that good stuff, man.
By the way, I don't take that for granted either. I do not take for granted that I was able to experience. You don't know it's the golden age of anything until the golden age is over.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I
and
got to
you
tell you right now, what's interesting right now, Trey, and
uh-huh.
you'll relate to this because you've been doing this long enough. The on-camera world, especially the union on-camera actors, are really fighting against self-tape auditions. They hate it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
been self-taping for 40 years. Because when I got into the business in 82, that was when agents started to put studios in their offices
Mhm.
so their actors could come in there to audition. And a lot of veteran voice actors were like, you mean I can't go to Ogilvy? I can't go to Chiat Day? I can't go to the ad agency anymore? That's where I would wine and dine and meet the writers and the producers, and we'd go out for martini lunches, and I had more of an opportunity to book.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them threw in the towel.
Wow.
A lot of them said, "No, I don't want to do this anymore. If I don't have my relationships." I didn't know anything different from auditioning in my agent's office. So we're almost into the third generation of new actors self-taping on camera. They don't know any different. Eventually, the majority will know any different. You got to adapt. Actors, listen. When I got into the voiceover industry, I spent $10,000 a year marketing my career. Reel-to-reel demos, crack and peel labels, padded envelopes, and stamps. And I would send out hundreds of demos to buyers all year long, because that's what they expected you to do. I still market.
Mhm.
I market to as many buyers or more, but it's free on this machine. So the money actors can save by pursuing voiceover today compared to what I had to spend. I was a real poor actor, Trey, and I had to spend $15 a month on a pager. Do you know that hurt?
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean,
Wow.
when I had my first apartment and I was a tour guide at Universal Studios, and I was like, boy, a loaf of Wonder Bread and a jar of peanut butter can be dinner 7 nights a week.
Oh, been there.
I've been there for many, many years. And then I was like, well, the bargain bin of bread that's three days old, I can get my pager if I do that. And if I do the store brand of peanut butter rather than Skippy, I mean, I got to tell you, this taught responsibility. This taught accountability. This taught, if I really want this for my career, then damn it, I've got to sacrifice and make it right. What now? You're part of this too, because you and I are very active online. We both do a little bit of this all the time,
Yeah.
and I see actors. They don't say, "How do I become a great actor?" They say, "Where can I get work?" Nobody in my generation ever in a class ever said, "Where do I get work?" All they wanted to be was great, because if you were great, your odds of working were better.
Yes.
And you
Uh,
never walked into a casting office and said, "Book it." But they do that every day online, and it's disgusting. And it repulses agents, it repulses buyers. It just feeds an actor's ego. So they've got all their followers saying, "Aren't you special? Aren't you great? Knew you would. Knew you had it in you." But they don't realize that everybody else out there are like, "Oh God, that's that's vulgar. That's vile. That's not promoting, that's bragging." And then they don't know how to promote once they get the job, once the
mhm.
job is out there.
How do you feel is the best way to market or to even say, "Hey, I did a thing, I booked a thing," without the without being too ostentatious?
It's a great question. You don't brag about the journey, you promote the event. What is the event? So that commercial that you did, all right, that is, you're still enjoying residuals and health benefits for all of your family. When that commercial comes out, you just post a link to the spot. You don't say a word. And then all of your followers do your promotions for you. They do the bragging for you. Is that you? You sound great. Congratulations. And by the way, the moment you booked that commercial, you should have gone to every social media platform and connected with the writer, the producer, the their bosses. You go to their LinkedIn pages and you connect with them and everybody else. So let's say your ad agency was Ogilvy,
Mhm.
and let's say you go to you book the spot, you go to your producer's LinkedIn page and you say, "So much fun, thank you so much, love to connect with you." You got it. The commercial comes out. You go to every one of his or her connections, because they're at Ogilvy, but some
Yeah.
of them have left to smaller offices, bigger offices, European offices, and you connect with all of them. And when that commercial is ready to promote, you promote that spot to them too. You're going to have thousands to promote to, without going online saying booked it, without going online saying, "So delighted to say I finally booked my first international commercial." That's bragging. You promote the actual job. The fact that you're in it is secondary. That's clever promoting. Just look at, we're in FYC season right now. For people who don't know what that is, that means for your consideration.
Yeah.
Daytime Emmys, primetime Emmys, Oscars are just starting up again, believe it or not. Look at any FYC ad in Variety and Reporter. You're going to see proper marketing. Emulate that. I took a class in marketing at UCLA. I never went to college, but I took extension classes.
Sure.
I took a class on how to be an agent at UCLA because I didn't know what our agents did when they weren't calling me. And what I learned was I could never be an agent. That's a hard job. I
Yeah, it is.
I went like this to John Wasser and Heather Dame. "I love you people. You worked your ass off without getting a dime. You worked your ass off because you only get paid when we get paid."
Yeah.
I got so much respect for my agent. But what I learned, the number one rule in marketing: the expert marketer markets in a way that the people they're marketing to have no idea they were just marketed to. Actors are needy. Actors have egos. Actors are desperate. Actors want to be loved more than they want to work. Bragging about your career will get you a pat on the back and a lot of hearts and a lot of thumbs up, but it also might lose you future work. Promoting your career will possibly advance it, but bragging probably will close more doors than promoting may open.
Hope you guys are listening. Um, and I am guilty. I sometimes, because there was a point I had stopped posting things altogether, and I actually had some people like reach out, and they were like, "Hey, man, you're okay? I hadn't seen you post anything or any work. Are you still working?" I'm saying, "Yeah, I'm still working. Just I didn't feel the need to." But like you said, so we as actors, we can be needy. I tried not to be that person. And there was a time where I can recall, um, there are peaks and valleys in this business. You'll be working every day, and then it may be a week where you have two jobs, and you're like, do they still love me? And do they like me?
You may have 2 weeks where you have zero jobs.
Amen.
That's showbiz. And that's why God created residuals. You know, I mean, that's the thing that people today, the non-union world, doesn't understand. We implemented television residuals in 1960. What we got in 1960 was residuals for TV from 1960 and forward, and a pension and health plan. What we gave up, and negotiations are always give and take. What we gave up was residuals on anything made before 1960.
Mm.
So, but actors that would have qualified for pension and health were grandfathered in.
Ah, okay.
Aha. Okay. So, it's really fascinating how the union works. And that was, by the way, SAG president Ronald Reagan who did that for us. But SAG president Ronald Reagan's former agent was head of Universal MCA's Lou Wasserman.
Wow.
So that's the business of show business. That the give and take was, we're going to have it forward, but we're not going to have it backwards. Well, what are you going to do about our older actors? Well, we'll grandfather them in. And right now, and I think that one of the catalysts is because voiceover is 80% non-union, our pension and health is in the toilet. Because if 80% of the work is no longer paying into, here's what your viewers have to understand how it works. Every job you do this union, they take out, I think it's 18.5% for pension and health.
Yeah.
That goes into a fund for everybody. And if you earn just under $30,000 a year, next year you'll qualify for health benefits. But if you don't make that, they still take that money out of your paycheck, because that goes for everybody. Well, if 80% of the work no longer has a pool of money to populate this pension and health fund, our dues is based on a percentage of your income.
Yeah.
If 80% of voiceover no longer pays into a union actor's income, that also means that 80% isn't being paid into our dues, which means that they can't afford staff. That means they can't afford certain things to work on our behalf. This is a vicious cycle. The fact that our voiceover industry has eroded from union to non-union, and I'm going full circle, but this is why I'm trying to bring it back for everybody.
Do you think that the union itself, because I've heard from other actors who've been doing this way longer than I have, that it seems that out of all the areas that SAG-AFTRA covers, that voiceover is like the redheaded stepchild. Like, we don't get the respect from the union.
Just the opposite.
Really?
Just the opposite. But 90% of films and TV are still union.
Mhm.
They have those celebrities. They need those celebrities. Most of the people that do voiceover, even, I've done some pretty high profile stuff. I'm not a celebrity. I'm a middle class voiceover actor. I'm a rank and file actor at the union, compared to Tom Hanks, compared to, Jennifer Aniston. No, we're not. But we're the main genre of acting that's 80% non-union. That's not the stepchild. That means that only 20% of the work we do is union.
Yeah.
But they still represent us for that. We still have contracts for every contract, every genre. We still have lawyers. We still have staff. We still have. I'm the co-chair of the LA voiceover committee. I negotiate the animation contract. I've been on that committee since 1990. So no, we're not. We are not. But here's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
After 25 years where the work has eroded. So it's so funny because actors, the non-union world, treats the union actors who look down at those who are doing non-union. They use that word, you're privileged. Well, no, we just know what you've done to us. There was shame was a very big reason why people didn't take non-union work in 1982. You didn't want to go to an audition of voice casters and walk in the room and everybody knows. You were one of the few people that went FICOR. And by the way, producers, casting directors, studio executives did not want to work with you. Recording engineers, if it was on camera, lighting, grip, makeup, wanted nothing to do with you if you did that. Why? Because their work is union too. And you've just slapped them in the face. The ones who are willing to not, the ones who are willing to get another day job, so when they work professionally, it's professional. 20, 25 years later, FICOR is not a threat anymore because half the country's right to work. The majority of voiceover is non-union. I kept trying. It was so funny. I was on the FICOR committee at the union, and I was the advocate for the non-union actor. I spoke for them. I said, guys, FICOR is a joke. Why? Well, let's role play. I'm a union actor. You're the FICOR department. I want to go FICOR. And they're going to say, well, you can't call yourself a professional actor if you go FICOR. Sure, I can. My friends are making 5-6 figures in non-union work. I'm barely getting enough auditions to make benefits. Well, you have to turn in your union card. So I don't have a credit card to make my wallet thicker anymore? Who cares? Well, you can't put SAG-AFTRA on your resume, but I'm working. Well, you won't get residuals. I haven't seen a residual. Well, you won't get health benefits. I'm going to do what my neighbors do. I'm going to buy private health care. I'll go to Kaiser. Well, you won't have a pension when you're 65. No, but I've got Merrill Lynch and they've got about $10,000 I've saved up and they've got a portfolio. I had every answer the non-union actor has as to why FICOR is fine for them. No longer is it a shame. Shame was a good thing. Shame was great. Look, shame used to keep people from stealing because you didn't want to shame your parents. Today, oh my goodness, just turn on the news. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing what people do just to not get caught. You were shamed into staying a union actor. And you did what we all did. You got another waiter job. Those 5 years I had survival jobs. I was a tour guide at Universal Studios 5 days a week. I was a mall Santa Claus 3 months out of the year. I was a babysitter. I did anything I could. I lived off of my survival jobs and banked my voiceover career this first 5 years. So when I went full time, I had 2 years of savings in the bank to live and work as a full-time actor.
Nice.
But again, today people just want to work at any price. They're going to pay the price because of AI.
Yeah, AI is coming and coming fast. Um, let's hop on two things.
Yes.
So let's go back to 19-year-old you.
Okay.
And you're paying your dues and you're working here and there, and you finally get to the point to where you say, you know what, this VO thing is starting to pay off. I don't have to work at the coffee shop anymore. Or I'm not a tour guide.
Well, that didn't happen until I was 23.
Oh, okay. All right. So then
Yeah.
let's let's move you up a little bit in the calendar
Okay,
then.
then. All right.
So now
So
you're
just want to be
23.
honest.
And what was that experience like the first time you knew that everything from 23 back you didn't have to return to? So those odd jobs and side jobs were behind you, and now this is your career, or this is your life, pretty much. Because I'm always asked, even after doing this now 15 years, which I'm still in shock. People always say, well, do you still feel the same way from the first gig until now? And my answer is every single time. So for someone like you, who in the era that you came up in, a lot of the folks that you were working with were people you looked up to. I kind of have that now because I've done some work with some actors. There's still some people on the list that I haven't yet, looking at you, Bob. And it
Talk to our agents.
you, you know
Yeah.
oh, keep that in mind. What was that like though, to be around, uh in the heyday, to be around those folks and being a part of that? Because I can imagine walking into a room and you're seeing Dawes Butler, Mel Blanc, June Foray, um oh, I can't think of the guy, the voice of Fred Flintstone. Well, there were two.
Well, at that time, I think it was still Alan Reed, but eventually
Yeah.
Henry Court.
Yeah. So either one, still, you're talking about at least in the VO world for
Yeah.
folks who are historians. I kind of am because I just like to learn about it. But to be in that number of folks, and
Yeah.
here comes this 23-year-old kid, like, how did you feel being a part of that?
All right. Well, you asked lots of layers. I'm going to give you lots of layers back.
Sure.
All right. Let's talk about when I was 23 and I started full time as a voice actor. I didn't want to do that when I was 23. I had 32 sick days my last year as a tour guide. And I got called into the office and they said, "We have to let you go. We can't afford to keep you anymore." And I
Wow.
said, "Why not? We can't afford to have a full time actor with 32 sick days." And I said, I had 32 sick days because I was working as a voiceover actor. And I earned more as a voiceover actor my last 2 years at Universal than I did as a tour guide.
Sure.
But I liked the security of a guaranteed paycheck. And I said to and my manager's name was Angela. I said, "Angela, what if voiceover dies? What if it dries up?" And she said, "You can come back. But right now, we need to hire somebody new." I'd been there for 5 years and I was getting the top tier in pay. They needed
Yeah.
to hire somebody at minimum wage full time to replace me.
Mm.
What I realized was, as I mentioned, I had 2 years of living expenses saved because I saved every dime I made in voiceover. I had 2 years of my apartment rent. I had car payments. I had insurance. I had food. I had 2 years, and I was making benefits as an actor. So I was like, okay, I can do this for 2 years. We then had the animation strike of 1987, I believe. I was on 2 or 3 shows, and all of a sudden that stopped because I had to go walk picket lines.
Yeah.
Like, fabulous. I had guaranteed income. That's stopping. I actually met and rubbed elbows and really became friends with people who became my colleagues on that picket line,
Yeah.
which was Nancy Cartwright, which was
Oh.
Corey Burton, which was Mona Marshall, which was
Oh.
everybody that I know and love today. I knew some of these people from jobs, from sessions, but you really got to know people. I remember my first day walking the picket line at Disney. Patty Duke was the president of SAG at the time.
Mm.
Showed up. She showed up before everybody else with donuts. And I picked up the sign, started walking, and she comes up to me and she puts her arm around mine and she goes, "Tell me about the cartoon actors, the cartoon business. I know nothing." And I
Wow.
told her. And I told her. She said, I'm supporting your strike, but I don't know anything about the what you're looking for, what you need, why you're on strike." And her son, Sean, just served on my committee that we just got a new contract, a new animation contract. It's kind of gone
Yes.
full Aston circle.
Hmm.
Um, Look, going back to what you said or what you asked about, what did you think when you left the survival jobs and worked full time? Back then, to this day, I have never considered myself above ever needing a survival job again. I'm an actor. I chose to be an actor. I chose to be a professional actor. What does that mean? There may come a day where I'm going to have to say, "Would you like fries with that?" I haven't had to. But when we had the commercial strike in 2000, I had just purchased the house that we're living in.
Hmm.
Not you and I. But yes. And I had, at the time that I found the house, I 5 years I've been the voice of Disney Channel, which, just like when I was a tour guide, I lived off of everything else in voiceover and banked my Disney Channel salary. And after a few years, I was like, "Ooh, I can buy a house." So I found this house. I opened escrow, 30-day escrow. 31 days later, Disney decided they changed their mind and they didn't renew my contract.
Oh.
Okay. And I called my agent at the time and I said, "You have to call them back. They have to, because I just bought a house." And my agent's like, "I don't think they care."
It doesn't
And
work that way.
and then we had the commercial strike.
Mm.
All right. So what did Bob do? Bob didn't furnish this house. I had a folding card table that in the kitchen was the kitchen table, in the dining room was the dining room table, and in the living room was the card table. I just chose, I've got a house. I could always sell this house. I got 4 bedrooms. I could get 3 roommates. I'm so lucky. I've got friends who are check to check, month to month. I also had become a licensed massage therapist. I didn't do it to
Wow.
make a dime. I did it because I thought it would be a fun, interesting thing to do. It was a hard class. It was a very difficult test. But I was like, I could I could do this. And I would go to the picket line, the commercial picket line, and I would give chair massages to actors.
Wow.
And it was $1 a minute. I would go to our agent's offices and I did that. I started doing client massages and I never had to touch my principal in my bank. Now,
Nice.
commercials were on strike, cartoons weren't, but I didn't want to just rely on one genre.
Hmm.
Again, just like I did years before when I worked professional voiceover, I wanted to make sure that it was professional and paid into pension and health. And my goodness, there's a genre of voiceover that's commercials. Everything was union back then. Every commercial was union, where one commercial and you're covered. I want to make sure that we get a good contract, and I'm not going to touch my principal if I have got a skill and I can pay my bills with that. And I'm not above that today. My massage table is in the other room. I could use it anytime. And my license is not up to speed. I would have to retest, but I still know it pretty well.
That's cool.
And by the way, I charge extra if you want to be massaged by Porky Pig.
I'm sure. Speaking of, let's get into that. So, um, you said you knew Porky was the character that you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And at the time, the person still doing it was still doing it.
Yes, he was.
Legacy characters, how is it um transitioning from having someone be the legacy character to now you become that, the transition that takes place? um Explain to people who may not know, because um I often hear where someone will say, man, I want to be the voice of fill in the blank character, yet
Homer Simpson. I get Homer Simpson every day.
that person is still alive and doing it. So
And
it's like,
healthy and not old and doing it well.
so explain how, you can't, I mean, you can, but it would be in bad taste. You just walk into a studio and say, hey, I know so and so's been doing it for 20 years, but hey, I can do it better. The etiquette that goes along with becoming a legacy character.
There's a lot of etiquette involved here. First of all, when I called Mel Blanc when I was 14, in that conversation, I never said I want to be Porky Pig. I said I want to do voices for cartoons. And by the way, if you want to hear that conversation, it's on my website. I recorded it.
Oh,
So, but also illegal, as illegal as tearing out the phone book. That's
so you're
illegal to
just
bug a
wiretapping, vandalism. You're a
buddy.
bad, bad boy.
You want to get into voiceover, you got to be a little bit of a felon, um, or just a bit of a BS artist. So I never told Mel Blanc I wanted to be Porky Pig. All I knew logically was if I'm going to stand a chance to play this character ever, I better be trained and in the business when opportunity arrives. And logic tells you that opportunity will be that the guy that was doing the character passes away. Okay, that's exactly what happened. Mel Blanc passed away. Warner Brothers had never anticipated that moment. They kept
Mhm.
with blinders. We'll deal with it whenever it happens. And then it happens. And they started holding auditions. And I just happened to have a really good agent who would get the call. And after, a dozen or so callbacks, I got my first job. People, I'm still auditioning for Porky Pig. Anytime that there's a major something, they make us audition again. And I don't always get it. Sometimes it's a non-union thing and I can't do it. Sometimes it's a money thing, and sometimes it's just the preference of this producer over this producer. Um, Etiquette. When I was studying with Dawes Butler, Dawes was the voice of Captain Crunch. And I got an audition from my agent for Captain Crunch. This was the proper etiquette. You call the person who's known to play the character. I'm not talking about somebody who's played like Batman, Superman, because there have been dozens of people to play those characters, but somebody who either created the character or has been the predominant voice for a long time. You do what I did with Dawes. I called Dawes up and I said, I don't know if you know this, but, and Dawes, who was just the kindest gentleman on Dawes's workshop, was $10 or a handshake, whatever you had that week.
Wow.
I know. And he was so sweet. And Dawes said to me, oh, yeah, I knew all about it. They changed ad agencies and they want to, I'm out. My contract expired. They're not renewing it.
Hmm.
I said, oh, okay. I said, well, Dawes, I refuse to read for this. He goes, oh, no, you should read for it. In fact, come over to the house. I'll coach you.
What?
I said, really? Oh, yeah. Well, if I'm not going to do it, I'd rather have somebody I know and like do it. Okay. Well, that was a mistake creatively because they didn't want Dawes because they wanted to change the character. But Dawes trained me to do his Captain Crunch. And they wanted the character to be younger and more hip. So I didn't get it because the guy that was Captain Crunch trained me to try to do his Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
But my point is, I called. I do Luke Skywalker for a lot of Star Wars things, games and cartoons and whatnot. The very first time that they wanted to book me for a Luke Skywalker job, I told my agent, call Mark Hamill's agent, find out if he knows about it. If he's in a contract negotiation, I want nothing to do with this because he is Luke Skywalker. If he doesn't want the job, fine, I'll do it, but I will not do it unless that phone call is made. That's the proper etiquette. If you're going to audition for a legacy character and the person who does it is still around, vital, happy, healthy, you contact them and you say, do you know about this? And would you prefer I didn't do it? And if they say I prefer you don't do it, you don't do it. Because the tables will be turned one day where you're going to be the legacy voice. And you're going to want the same, what's the word? Etiquette.
Same etiquette, same respect.
Yeah. But if it's like they're doing a new version of Smurf and they're looking for a Smurfette, well, Lucille Bliss was the original Smurfette until she died, and then they use celebrities, and they'll probably use a celebrity again. But if they don't, yeah, audition for Smurfette. That's fine. But what I get all the time, like happened this week, somebody sent me can you critique my Porky Pig? Well, number one, their Porky Pig was dreadful. I'm not going to tell somebody that their work is dreadful. I don't want to burst their bubble. But number two, it's a little weird. I go to fan conventions and I'm signing stuff and people stand above me auditioning for my characters. And I'm always nice. I'm always, it's really good. Do I stand a chance? Not while I'm doing it. I'm going to be really honest with you. I would prefer you didn't. But just like Mel Blanc, just like Dawes Butler, just like June Foray, Candy Milo was doing June Foray's voices for about a year or two before June passed away. But didn't advertise it, didn't promote it, out of respect for June. But June was too feeble. She wasn't able physically to do them at that time. There's a respect from the previous generations that doesn't exist anymore. And what's happening today is people are either going after your characters, lying to your face, saying they'll never do that until you find out they are doing it. Oof. Whatever. I believe in karma, and it's a bitch, and it will bite you in the ass. Wouldn't you rather have the respect of your peers than that paycheck?
Yeah.
So that's my personal opinion. But I also, and people Google this, go to YouTube. I moderated a panel at the TV Academy called But the Characters Live On. It was about the next generation, not just cartoons. I'm going to date myself. Most of your audience won't know this character, but Sherry Lewis was a ventriloquist.
Lamb chop.
Lamb chop, exactly. And her daughter Mallory does lamb chop now. So it was me and D. Bradley Baker and the producers of New Looney Tunes. We were talking about Looney Tunes. And I brought in Greg Griffin to talk about doing Daphne in Scooby-Doo. And I had Mallory Lewis come in with lamb chop. Because I tried to get some Henson people, but I couldn't get them. Some Muppet people. My point was characters will live on beyond the creators. And they should. And they should. The next generation should thrive because the characters should thrive. And Lamb Chop was on my shoulder with Mallory doing this.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Lamb Chop, and I totally forgot Mallory was even there because she was so good at this. And by the way, Lamb Chop is made of a sock, and Lamb Chop smelled just like an old gym sock.
That's scary.
So look, if you want longevity in this business, if you want respect in this business, concentrate on originality. If you want to work in animation, and if you happen to be one of the fortunate few represented by one of the few agents who gets the calls every day for animation, and there's a time and the right time, right place, planets align, where they are looking for Betty Boop, Homer Simpson, whatever, Phineas or Ferb, and it's a legitimate, real opportunity where you're not going to be stepping on toes. That's the way it should come up.
Now, I know how influential Dawes Butler has been to your career. In your own coaching techniques, do you use any of his teachings into your students?
Yeah, everything I teach up to a certain point, I borrowed from Dawes. I borrowed from Joanie Gerber, from Louise Chamis, from Michael Bell, from Dave Madden, from all the people that taught me. If anybody watching this has ever studied with me, a lot of the things I say are Dawesisms. Dawesism. If you physically play the character, the voice will follow. And Dawes would demonstrate this with like he would do Yogi Bear, and he would stick his chest out because that's how he did him. He did him with
Yeah.
his chest out.
Yeah.
And his face would change. And then he would do Huckleberry, and Huckleberry Hound had no smile. He was just kind of dry. And you'll have a 2 or 3 or 4-way conversation with yourself. If you have a different facial expression, different body language, different from head to toe physical, you won't blend characters. You won't blend voices. Dawes also said all characters have a voice, but not all voices have character. That's one of my many mantras. Dawes was the only voiceover coach who said the word actor. None of them said acting or actor. He did. He always called us actors. And his class, any given night, would be people like me studying, and June would stop by, June Foray. Lucille Bliss would stop by. Janet Waldo, who was Jane Jetson, would stop by. Yeah. Why? Because they wanted to work out with the legend. And Dawes wrote all of his scripts that we did in his class. And he would be like, look, I studied Meisner for 2 years. Acting is reacting. And Dawes would say, acting is reacting. Listen to your scene partner. This is another reason why not having the ensemble kind of sucks, because there's no one to listen to. You got to imagine what they're doing. But, Dawes was all about, how you deliver your line is based on what you just heard. Well, most actors are like, my line, my line, my line, my line, when they're preparing their script. No, you should be reading their line, their line, their line. Another Dawesism. If you get the whole script in exposition, in between the lines, story exposition, anything that can be vocalized should be vocalized. No matter where you are in an audition, you're coming off of something before that line. Decide what that is and react to it on your line. That way you're not just reading in a funny voice. You're involved in the scene before the written word. These are all Dawesisms.
That's very cool. Now, if you've been sitting here with us this long, now we get to have a little fun.
Okay.
Give us a walkthrough of how, because like you said, people come up to you in conventions and stuff, and they do the voice. Some may be good, some you just like, but hey, thanks for coming. What goes into the phrenology or the syntax of doing Porky?
Oh, well, so for me, it's pretty easy because I've been doing them for so long. I mean, I've been getting paid to do them since 1990. So that's 34 years. Before that, I would just do them. A teacher would ask me a question in fifth grade, and I would answer the question like Porky. So I've been doing them forever. I'm better at Porky. I'm more comfortable at the mic doing Porky Pig than I am doing myself, because it's much easier to hide behind a character
Yeah.
than to be yourself. But I'm not quite understanding your question. So what is it like doing it? Or
So, well, the question is, let's say you have the viewers that are watching now, like you, they want it to be Porky. Not saying that they're going to come after you, but what's the proper way of doing because
oh,
the
okay,
stutter.
got it. Okay. Well, oh, good question. So here, people will send me when they're like, I want to be Porky Pig, and they'll send me, yeah, that's all, folks. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Can you pick up the front page of the LA Times and read it like Porky Pig? Because if you can do that, and the story on the front page of the LA Times shines through, then you know that character. So years ago, when we were auditioning for the first Space Jam movie,
Mhm.
there were thousands of us reading for all these characters. It got down to like the top five, and we were at LA Studios in Studio City, and they handed out copy for the final callback, and I looked at the copy, and it was Hamlet's To Be or Not to Be. Now I hadn't turned it over. I was just looking at everybody else getting theirs, and they looked at their copy, and I saw one guy go like this, and I'm like, I wonder if it's dirty. I wonder what it says. I wonder what's
Yeah.
going down. And I looked at that, and I went, I'm going to book this job, because
Mm.
that was a breeze to me. I don't think of where I'm going to stutter on any, just like a really good actor does not think where they're going to react until it happens. If they're doing
Mhm.
on camera, if they're doing a play, unless there's a specific joke in mind by the writer, I always tell my writers, please don't write my stutter into my script. I can't find the story. If there's a
Mm.
thousand W's and D's and R's. But if there's a joke that you want, like if the line is, um, uh, Sylvester, have you seen the dog? That's the line. And they want me to ad lib, to have trouble getting dog out and say canine. I ask them to write an ellipses that tells me to stutter. So if the
Okay.
line is, Sylvester, have you seen the dog dot 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 canine? That is my musical note to
To
say, Sylvester, have you seen the canine? So if they've got a specific joke in mind, they write it that way. Or I stutter as long as it takes me to think of something funny to say.
Hmm.
I don't plan it, it just happens in the moment. All acting happens in the moment. All good acting. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I guess I did. All good acting happens in the moment. Um, so I don't prepare what I'm going to do. I do read it so I know the story. I do
Mhm.
read it in case I know that there's a joke that the writers want, but it just comes out of me in real time when we're recording. And sometimes I'll be thinking of a joke, and Trey, I'll get stuck in a stutter. It'll be like, well, I got nothing. And I'm like, oh, there's got to be something. I'm a really good improvisational actor, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So there are miles of outtakes like that, I'm sure,
I'm
so,
sure.
somewhere in the archives.
That's crazy because, you know, I there's certain legacy voices that I am just fans of. And to hear your process, because I always envision, you get your script and they say, okay, here's where the stutter comes in, and then here where the stutter comes in. But to hear you say that it's you've been doing it so long to now it's just innate that okay, here, or maybe sometimes the writers will give you a cue. I think that's very cool.
By the way,
Um,
I do respect those writers. I mean, if they really have a joke in mind, I'm not going to say that's not my process. I'm not going to be that kind of a jerk. But I will say to them, hey, can I do one more take for me? They never say no. But I'll tell you something interesting. When I first started doing Porky, um, Warner Brothers would give me like a 15-minute reference of Mel Blanc that, and they gave it to me to keep.
Yeah.
And I remember after they gave it to me in the first session, after having me take it home and listen, I went to the session and I said, but what do you want? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, it's 15 minutes. These clips are from the 30s. These clips are from the 40s. These clips are from the 50s. And this clip's from the 60s. Listen to them. The character evolved.
Right.
What do you want? We want Porky. I understand. What do you want? And they're like, well, what do you want? I'm like, thank you for asking.
There you go.
If I'm not asked or told, I'll give you an example. This show, Looney Tunes Cartoons,
Yeah.
it's on Max right now. We did like 5 seasons. That particular project was an homage to Bob Clampett, Tex Avery, the guys who started the wacky, zany Looney Tunes that were in the late 30s, early 40s. Most of the stuff that we've done in the 34 years I've done these characters, none of it was that era. This was that era. So I actually had to channel that style, that pace, that comedy. And after 30 something years, actually at the time 29 years, because we were doing the show for 5, never got the chance to play them that way. And I love playing them that way.
Yeah.
We did a show back, 20 something years ago, I guess, called Duck Dodgers.
Yes.
That was an homage to Chuck Jones. So that's my sweet spot. If somebody says, do the Porky that you think is best, it's going to be 1950s, mid 50s, Duck Dodgers, Drip Along Daffy, Robin Hood Daffy, the more sophisticated, more the drier Porky, where Daffy was greedy, not the Loonies, but he was the the duck season, wabbit season Daffy. That's the Porky I prefer to play. He's not the butt of the joke. He was the butt of the joke with Tex Avery and Bob Clampett. But for Robin Hood Daffy, where Daffy's Robin Hood, and Porky's Friar Tuck, and he's looking for Robin Hood, and Daffy Duck's like, look no further, fat friar, for I am Robin Hood, and Porky's like, oh, cut it out. I'm serious. If you don't know where Robin Hood is, just say so. And it's just conversational, dry. He's the smart one. Daffy's the idiot. Same with Duck Dodgers. So that's my favorite way to play Porky. This was fun. I don't get me wrong. I loved that series, but that's my favorite.
That's cool. Do you ever think there will come a day where you've like, I have done Porky for fill in the blank years and I'm done?
I will never say I'm done, but I will probably not have a say if that's true or not. I've not been the only Porky in 34 years.
Yeah.
So I was, it's so funny. I'll do a talk show, or there will be a print ad or whatever. And I'll say the voice of, and I've never called myself the voice of. I'll say I'm the predominant voice of, but I never want to retire, because why would I? In this day and age, when you can take your little, right over there is my travel gear, ready to go if I have a vacation.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be really honest. I'm being aged out for certain things. They don't want me, because they look at IMDb and they can say, oh, he's 60. Well, he probably can't play this anymore, even though I probably can. But it's a young person's world. I'm not ever going to scream ageism, because that's the way it is, folks. I'm not going to invest my energy in complaining what's out of my control. I've passed on some Porky stuff because I didn't like the content. There were a series of shorts where I didn't like the way they were making me sound. I didn't like the script. I thought it was between PG-13 and R, and I thought, I don't want to play a character like that. So I quit, and they fired me on the same day.
Wow.
Yeah. So look, there will come a time where I might say to our agents, I think I'm going to travel for 3 months. And if a job comes up in 3 months, I'm not available. I'm not going to find a studio in Florence, Italy, because I want to see Florence, Italy. I don't
Right.
want to see a microphone. I might do that, but I'm never going to say, nope, not going to do it anymore. But there will be a time where, look, Mel Blanc was not very good the last few years of his life. Neither was Dawes.
Hmm.
I mean, Dawes would come to life at the microphone, but man, the guy I think had heart disease and cancer and a
Wow.
stroke and all kinds of stuff. Um, that's just called life. So of course there'll be a time when I'm not going to have, hopefully not for a very long time, but if I don't have the mental dexterity to think of that ad lib and they got to go to somebody else because I just don't got it anymore, they got to do what they got to do. But I'm not going to throw in the towel voluntarily ever.
Good. I think the world's a better place with you around.
God bless you.
All right. So, as we close, as I do with all of my guests, the show is called Take Time Out with Tre Mosley, but we turn the tables and we ask you, Mr. Bob Bergen,
Yes.
how do you take time out for yourself?
I'm by nature an extremely lazy person. You would not know that by how disciplined I am in life. I eat well, I work out every day. I am in this room. I get up at sometimes 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, because as you know, Tim needs it in New York by 9. And
Yes.
I'm not good at night. I'm fine in the morning. So I'm in here working before the sun comes up. I love what I do. I love what I do. But if I got nothing going on and there's a couch and a DVR and the DVR is bloated, I might put my feet up and just go, let's see what I got. Oh, look what I recorded. So yeah, I'm a couch
You're a
potato. I
couch
love
potato.
TV. I was on the board of the TV Academy for 10 years because I love television. I like travel. I like wine tasting. I
Mm,
love to cook. I love to entertain. I love teaching. I love mentoring. I spend, I'd say, 10% of my day advising actors for free. And I don't ask for anything back other than uh, I'm going to be honest with you. So if you don't want honest, don't ask. But if you
mm.
don't want honest, honest. If you That sounds like Popeye. If you don't want honest, um, if you don't want honest, please don't ask me and don't challenge me. I don't even give a damn if you want to ignore me. I don't care. I'm not going to call you up and say, "Did you take my advice?" Because I don't care. But don't challenge me. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's okay. That's cool. I know I'm not right for everybody. I'm a very honest teacher. I'm a nurturing teacher. If I see talent, man, I will be a mama bear. But if you're falling down on the job, if you're not practicing, if you're not committed, if you don't do your homework, I'm going to spank you. I'm going to look, why are you wasting my time and yours? Because that's what Dawes did to me.
Hmm.
That's what Don LaFontaine did to me. Can I tell you a quick Don? You know who Don was?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I figured you did. But for those who don't, he was a big movie trailer promo guy. When I was 16, I was invited I was invited to an all-day Saturday workout with Don LaFontaine, Jack Angel, Danny Dark,
Wow.
Steve Schatzberg, occasionally Ernie Anderson, and me. And it was at the studio where I studied voiceover. And it was at Wally Burr Studio.
Oh, wow.
My mom and dad were worried that these guys were pedophiles. Why did they want this kid to be a part of this? And all they would do was read copy. They would just practice copy because they wanted to keep their machine well oiled.
Sure.
And I was never at their level, nor am I today. But watching them and working with them at the mic pushed me so far beyond where I was. I was there was no way I couldn't grow.
Yeah.
But Trey, the best part of those workout days was lunch. That's when they taught me. That's when Jack Angel taught me the demo tape assembly line. Dining room table, crack and peel labels, demo, padded envelopes, typewriter, letters, stamps. And that was my mom and dad's dining room table. Unless they had a dinner party, then I would move it. And
Yeah.
that's why I spent $10,000 a year sending out demos eventually. But they would also give me advice. One great piece of advice that Don LaFontaine gave me was always carry yourself as a successful actor and never break character. Let the world think you're working, making money, which is one of the downsides of social media, because every single day people use social media as group therapy. Hey guys, had a bad day. Hey guys, can't cope today. Hey guys, can you send out some good love? Hey guys, I had a car accident. Hey guys, my dog died. It's nothing but complaining. Hey guys, I haven't booked in so long. Hey guys, my agent just dropped me. You just told the world you're a complete failure. This is the detriment that is social media. Don LaFontaine would have had a fit if it existed, if he were still alive. So, another Don story. I was still doing this group when I first signed with Don Pitts, my first agent. And I had an answering machine. I was a tour guide. And Don had left me a message. And, you know, you had to go outside to the payphone with a little box and play the little beep to get your message in your answering machine. And it was a hot day and I was tired. And I was like, I'll check my machine when I get home. And there was a message from Don. Can you get back to me ASAP? I've got a last minute job for you. And yeah, I'd given Don the phone number at the studio. He didn't call me there. So the next day was our workout group. And I'm lamenting at lunch about, I was pissed off at my agent for not calling me at the studio and for not tracking me down. And Don LaFontaine, who was the most delightful, cuddly pussycat of a bear you'd ever met, I saw his face get red and these two little veins here popped. And he goes, you shut your mouth right now. You just shut your damn mouth right now. You're with Don freaking Pitts. Nobody at your age, your experience gets with Don Pitts. You're mad at him for not tracking him down. You didn't check your machine. You don't deserve that job. And on Monday morning, you're going to go to his office. You're going to apologize and you're going to say to him that will never happen again. And if you don't do that, you're not welcome back here. Whoa. And of course, my chin was quivering and the eyes were watering and I was like this, sinking. And thank God for that tough love. It's the kind of tough love I give every day on social media. It's the kind of tough love I give to my students. And we're living in that participation ribbon world where just because I wake up today, you're supposed to love me. No, you're supposed to earn love, respect. You're supposed to be disciplined. You're supposed to strive for brilliance, strive for greatness, not strive for a hug, for a safe space and a kitty to pet. I have nothing but respect for the people that work their butts off. And I have a lot of contempt for people who put up nothing but excuses. God bless the tough love from Dawes, from Don, from Dave Madden, from Michael Bell, from the people that came before me that made sure that my skin was thick. I don't have rejection problems. I wasn't selected. They got somebody else. I don't really care. How do you handle rejection? Expect it. When you get the job, that's icing on the cake. I expect to get rejected. I don't expect to get the job. I'm sure you do the same thing. Heather or John or somebody, Lisa will contact you and you say, hey, you have a session on Thursday at 9. It's blah, blah, blah. Did I read for that? That's my first question. Did I read for that? Because we read for so many things, but if you emotionally hold on to every audition, you're going to be a basket case.
Yeah.
I have a blast in that box over there reading for stuff. I push send, it's gone. It's out of my head. I'm too busy. I've moved on to the other thing. You cannot emotionally hang on to anything, but people, stop using social media as group therapy. Stop being a freaking victim. Sell yourself as a success. And you know what? The most successful actors on the planet are insecure and shy. The ones who say, I'd like to thank the Academy, have the biggest case of imposter syndrome.
Wow.
Today's a good day, but I made this movie 2 years ago. And right now I've got 2 dogs in the can. Uh-oh, am I ever going to live up to this moment again? That's called being human. Human's normal. You can't cure normal. Everybody has imposter syndrome, but play the part of an actor who doesn't. Play the part of a success. Play the part of disciplined, and play the part of the person you want the world to think you are, and stop being a victim. And don't say that's easy for me to say, because you have no idea what my life is like.
Straight up, straight up. All right. Well, how do the folks get to follow you and all that good stuff? And also if they want to be a part of your class. I know your waiting list is miles and miles long, but
Yeah, I stopped doing group classes with COVID, and now because I didn't know I'd like the Zoom stuff. I love it, but I've got a really, really, really long wait list. When I say really long, it's years long. I always tell people, get on it. Because so now what happens when I contact people, hey, I got some time next Thursday or next Saturday, whatever. And oh, yeah, I gave up voiceover because I called you 3 years ago. Okay, bye. It's a long wait, but I will bump you up the list if you have an audition you want some coaching on and it fits into my schedule. But I only do 1, maybe 2 coaching sessions a week. I'm easy to find. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I think it's bergen.bob. I'm on Twitter at Bob Bergen. If you Google me, you'll find ways to get me. I'm in the phone book. It really does. The phone book really does still exist. And I am still listed because if somebody wants to call me like I called Mel Blanc, I want them to be able to.
wow. And I know you
But if
told
people say I tried to reach you and I couldn't, I'm like, you liar. I answer every email as soon as I get it because I don't, unless I'm in that box for an hour or two. When I come out, I'll find it. I'll respond to it.
I will say that because yeah, he is very prompt with emails.
You see
Uh,
us.
yes. Well, I have enjoyed myself. I know the last time we talked, it was a couple of years ago, and you told me, and I'm going to hold you to it. One
What's
day
that?
we are going to have lunch. You said, "Come on up, we'll have lunch," and I'm like, "What am I
Well,
going to
that was
LA?"
that was before COVID because now that we have COVID, I never leave this room during lunch.
Uh,
But what we can do is cocktails or dinner or both.
I will
Which,
hold you
by the
to
way,
that.
it's a much more enjoyable meal.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Um, I am down with cocktails and dinner. Folks, this has been Bob Bergen. I am always Tre Mosley. And thank you all for watching. And remember, folks, take some time out for yourself. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley podcast, part of the Titan Media Network. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. To see the video version of this, you can find us on YouTube on the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley YouTube page. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. Either way, we'll see you next time.